Hi there, welcome to day 2 of your video tips, help for your hips. So yesterday we were looking at just where you are already, and great stuff if you actually could figure out whether you were more in your heels, more in the balls of the feet, more on the outside edge, more on the inside edge. And even if you didn't know where you were in your feet, don't worry about it. It takes practice and it takes time, and we spend a lot of time worrying about everything above our feet except our feet, unless you've had pain there. So today we're just going to work on what happens when we're too far forward or too far back. So I'm going to come up into standing, and if I just turn to my side to start with, if I start to lean forward into the balls of my feet, you can really see that forward lean in the body. Now this is probably quite exaggerated, but I need you to be able to see what's going on. And so when I come back into my heels, I bring myself over top of my body, so the head's over the shoulders, shoulders over the hips, hips over top of the knees and feet. When I drift forward, I can feel that I'm gripping with my toes, and so if I'm gripping with my toes, that could lead to something like plantar fasciitis or foot pain near the heel or the arch. It could also lead to the toes starting to claw. When you start to come forward, you're also decreasing the angle at the front of the ankle, and so the shins could then become tight. I really feel tightness in the front of my knees, so quadriceps down into the knees, so that could lead to knee problems, hip flexor problems, because you're loading those muscles all the time. And so the rib cage tends to sort of come forward and down, so your breathing is affected and your head is forward, and so that affects your head carriage over top of your body. And so the back of the neck can become fairly tight because our eyes always have to stay on the horizon. So as much as the body's leaning forward, the head's going to have to go back to come up to keep us looking upright. And so if you've had problems in the back of the neck, with your breathing, with the front of your hips, with the front of your thighs, with the shins, with your plantar fascia, it could be that you could fix that with that one thing and actually just getting yourself a little bit more into your heels. Now, if we go conversely into the heels and I lean back, you can see already that leaning back starts to give me a little bit more arch in my lower back, and I can also really feel my calves. Again, you could still end up with some tension on your plantar fascia, so you could end up with foot pain even leaning back into the heels. If you're in your heels quite heavily, it could lock down the heel bone, so you could end up with Achilles problems, calf problems, hamstring issues, glutes, all the way up the spine to the base of the skull. And so essentially, just by loading our foot too heavily one side or the other, we can kind of create things that are there waiting to happen. And so when you wake up one day and you've got a calf strain, or you wake up and you've got knee problems and they weren't there from any big incident, it's always important to come back down and reflect at your feet. And so when we start looking at the hips, obviously you're really thinking about the front of the hip and the back of the hip being affected by where your feet are and the pressure that you're putting through them. So if we just take ourselves and just try to find that middle ground, if you go forward into the balls of the feet, you'll feel tension there. And then if you go back into the heels, you'll start to feel the tension building up at the back of the leg. And I would say just do this a few times. Make yourself really aware of everything in the body, how it feels as you're doing this. And so wherever you are as a normal happening is going to feel natural and okay. When you go the opposite way, that's where you're going to really notice that the body feels less stable there. So if you didn't already register where your feet were, this might give you some more clues. Now, if we go forward and back, and for me, I know that before I really worked on this, that I was very forward in my posture in terms of being on the balls of my feet, gripping with my toes. I've really worked on that over the years, and so I'm now in a more neutral position. So I'm going to start with leaning back. So you want to go to where your body isn't naturally, and then just start to bring yourself gradually forward, so you start to feel the pressure on the balls of the feet. So particularly the ball of the big toe and the ball of the little toe. And then you want even pressure in your heels. So that triangle underneath each foot means that you're now balanced. And then if you can soften the muscles here and be more relaxed, this is your normal standing place that you're looking for. So I always give this one to people when I work with them in my clinic. I say, do this one while you're waiting for the kettle to boil. Any chance that you've got, if you're standing in a queue at the supermarket, just sort of move forward and back at a smaller level so it's maybe less noticeable, and then just try to find that middle ground where you're a little softer. And I promise you, this exercise, although it feels incredibly small, can have the biggest impact on the rest of your body. So enjoy and let me know how you get on with this.